Last time we talked about the anaerobic bacterium. So we introduced tetany, and we also introduced perfringens. And there is another important anaerobic bacterium, which is called botulinum. Okay, botulinum. So that's a pronunciation in the dictionary of this name. Botulinum is another anaerobic bacterium. They are also large bacilli. When you stain it with gram staining, it's gram positive. As you can see in this picture, they have spores in the cell, and the spore is placed subterminally. So it's close to the terminus, but not exactly on the top of the terminus. And they produce peritrichous flagella, which means that these bacteria are motile. And keep in mind that these spores are highly or extremely resistant to heat. So it means that by just boiling the spores, you cannot kill them. So they are highly resistant to heat. If you need to inactivate the spores by boiling or cooking food which contain the spores, you need to keep the food at high temperature for a long time. For example, over 20 or 30 minutes. So this is a botulinum. And they are toxic because they can produce toxins. So botulinum toxins are among the most toxic substances known. It's very toxic. Most toxic substances known. With a very little amount of botulinum toxin, it can kill animals and even kill a human. They bind to the receptor of the presynaptic membrane of motor neurons of the peripheral nervous system. So last time we introduced the regulation of muscle by motor neurons. So this is the normal condition. This is a normal neuron, and this is a presynaptic place, and it releases the acetylcholine, the green molecule, which binds the receptor to the muscle cells, and that causes the muscle cell to contract. But this botulinum toxin, this red one, it binds directly to the presynaptic membrane here and blocks the release of acetylcholine. And that means that the muscle will get no signal of contraction. So the muscle will keep relaxed. And this will lead to paralysis to the host. That's a serious problem. If the paralysis happens to legs or arms, that's not lethal. But once it happened to the muscle in our chest, we cannot breathe. If it happens to the heart, the heart will stop pumping blood. So that is a critical condition. But on the other hand, botulinum toxin can be utilized to fight against facial wrinkles. So, and I think this is very popular all over the world. And a lot of women, especially those actresses, they received the botulinum toxin to remove facial wrinkles. So that is based on how the toxin works. it relaxes the muscle so that, for example, here there are wrinkles, and you inject the botulinum toxin directly to that location. And before treatment, you can see the wrinkles. And after injection of the toxin, the muscle will relax and the wrinkles are gone. So this is the one usage of the toxin. And of course, this toxin is very dangerous, very toxic. And when you use it as a medicine, you need to control the amount of the toxin, because you don't want the toxin to be too much, and you don't want the toxin to diffuse to other parts of the body. Okay, so it's a local injection rather than a system injection. For the pathogenesis of botulinum, so most cases of botulism, keep in mind the pronunciation of this word. This is when we say the name of the bacteria, we say botulinum, but the disease it causes sound like botulism. So botulism results from the ingestion of food which contain the bacteria botulinum and produce toxin. If there is toxin in it, it also cause disease, especially those spiced, smoked, or vacuumed, packed, or canned foods. So that's not surprising because the bacteria can grow in anaerobically. So, for example, the canned food, there is no oxygen in it. We remove the oxygen from the can. Well, for most of the aerobic bacteria, they cannot grow. We can keep the food fresh. But this is anaerobic. They can grow without oxygen. So that is why they can contaminate or grow in those low oxygen foods. And if you ingested those foods without thorough cooking, the bacteria, the spores, or toxins in the food will cause troubles to you. And another situation is in infants, newborn infants. Before they are 1 year old, the acid in their stomach is pretty low, so they cannot fight against botulinum. They're not well powered to fight against the botulinum. So if there is some chance that the bacteria or the spores get injected by the infant, it's very dangerous. And interestingly, in some countries, people like to give the kids, the infants, some honey or sugar. But in the honey, the natural honey, it usually contains some botulinum spores, so it's contaminated by the botulinum. And we adults can fight against a small number of botulinum in it, but the infant cannot stand the botulinum in honey. So in the future, when you are a doctor or when you become a mom or a dad, just keep in mind that don't give your little infant honey when they are less than 1 year old. Okay, so that is the pathogenesis of the botulinum, and also how the toxin acts we introduced. And botulinum will always cause flaccid paralysis, and sometimes this paralysis is lethal. For clinical findings and see what will the toxin cause, usually it begins with a viral disturbances. So that is the coordination of eye muscles and so that you cannot see things clearly. Usually it's a double vision like that. The patient will lose the ability to swallow and speech clearly. So that's the initial clinical finding. And with the development of the disease, if the toxin level is high, the patient might die from uh, respiratory paralysis or cardiac arrest. So that means the toxin level is high. It influences the muscle involved in respiration. So the patient cannot respirate, cannot get enough oxygen, or it influences the muscle in the heart. It can cause cardiac arrest. Well, the symptoms in the gastrointestinal tract are usually not regularly prominent. So even though it enter our body through ingestion, but the intestinal tract symptoms are not regularly prominent. And there is no fever. This is one important property, characteristic. It doesn't cause fever because it's not due to the endotoxin, and it's only the specific exotoxin. For laboratory test, we can collect specimen from the patient's blood. If there is toxin in the blood or the intestinal contents or leftover food, you collect those specimens and analyze it, whether there is toxin in it. Well, to analyze the existence of toxin, we can detect the toxin by giving them to mice. And if the mice is influenced, probably there is some toxin, the botulinum toxin. And to confirm the results, we can also give the mice some specific antibody. And if the antibody can inhibit the effect of the toxin, we are sure that this is the botulinum toxin because the antibody is against the botulinum toxin. So you do animal experiment to confirm the existence of toxin. And for treatment, here the trivalent antitoxin, that's antibodies, must be administered to the patients immediately. So we should use antitoxin first. And your patients need to get enough respiration so that you can maintain the oxygen level in their blood, in their body. So that's essential. So usually you need to give your patient some mechanical ventilation if necessary, especially when the muscle involved in respiration is influenced. And for prevention, we mentioned that the bacterium, the toxin, and spores exist mainly in foods, especially those canned foods and preserved foods, such as the smoked foods or sausage. So before we consume those foods, we need to heat and cook those foods thoroughly. Make sure that we kill most of the bacteria, we kill most of the, we inactivate the toxins. So that's for prevention. Okay, so this is some leftover, well, not food leftover, some leftover from last lecture. And for the botulinum, We do have some videos on botulinum. You can log into the Superstar platform to watch those videos. Okay, so that's for this topic.